Alright, so hello everybody, welcome back to another Davis Me video. So today what we work on is we're gonna work on a Django project that's maybe going to incorporate React, uh, maybe some React, React, maybe some JavaScript front end stuff with Django. So you're gonna maybe incorporate like Django and some React front end templates to build a form maker. So if you haven't made an online form before, you can go to forms.google.com. It's a Google Forms tool. Basically, you can make forms, share with each other. So we're gonna try to make some service like that where we can fill out a form and do some cool thing with it. So, and again, this is Django project. I'm going to see can we incorporate some React front end with it, and I think it's going to be a pretty fun project to work with. So what you need to do is you need to go ahead and install Django if you haven't. You can just type pip install Django, and it's going to install the most current Django for you, which is as of today, October 3rd, 2020. The most current version of Django should be 3.1. And then after you install Django, what you can do is you can type Django admin, start project. So Django is built on the idea. Django also is a Python web framework. It's built on the ideas of different projects and in each project there's different application within it. So in here we can do something like this. So start project, and I'm just gonna say form maker, and then capitalize F and M. So let's go run this command. And then then what we can do is we can go ahead and cd into form maker, and then you can see we got lots of we got not a lot of, but we got a directory called form maker. Let's get a manage.py. So let me just open this in Visual Studio Code. So now I'm also going to introduce some. So I recommend you to follow my Python tutorial if you haven't, because I'm not gonna really go through the needy detail Python syntax stuff like that. But you can see this is a basic setup of a Django application. You gotta manage.py, and then you got a folder called FormMaker, which is basically your project name. And then you can see there's some config file under here. This is our regular init.py, ASCII with tree for deployment, settings for manage some settings with your project, and urls.py to manage your entire URL path. Because so url.py is mainly going to manage different paths, and they're going to explain what's that in just a little bit. Okay, so now create our first Django application, a Django project. Now let's go and build our first app within our project, because that's what Django really come out of. So in here, I'm just gonna run Python 3 because for some reason my default Python is Python 2.7, so I'm just gonna use Python 3, manage.py, and then I'm just gonna say start app, and put your app name here. And then as always, we'll go ahead and start our first app with authentication. And by the way, I didn't actually plan anything for this, so I'm kind of doing it like freestyle, so you guys can get more like a better idea. So there might be some errors along the way, so please understand. But yeah, so we'll go through all these problems, and I'm gonna show how to tackle these problems together, because I most likely have seen this problem, but maybe don't know how to face it. But I mean, maybe I need to use some online service to solve it, like Stack Overflow. But we'll go solve the problem once we have. Okay. They're just gonna initialize a new Git repository to publish some Git after we finish this video. Okay, so now if you go ahead and open up Authentication, our app created, you will see got a migration folder, migrations, in it admin apps model test views. So what we will do first is we'll go ahead and create a new file. We're gonna call this urls.py. We're gonna create a new file called urls.py. Basically, this file is for managing different URLs within a certain application. Project, you can imagine, is the biggest thing in a Django, like a life cycle or a workflow. And then within each project, we got different application. And you can see we got in the overall urls.py, which is this, in the overall URLs.py. This manage our entire application URLs.py, where within each application manage each application's URLs.py. So now what I can do is I could do something like this. I can say from Django, from Django.urls import pass, from dot import views. So basically we're just import some module, and then we're gonna say URL patterns equals to a list. This is a default variable, and then here I'm just gonna put pass, and then pass is basically whenever you are visiting a URL. For example, if you go to google.com, you might go to some slash, for example, /hello/world, maybe, but of course this doesn't really exist. But /hello/world is a pass. And usually Django is always append a / after the URL pass. So the entire pass for this is going to look like as /hello/world/. So here's how, but usually when we define pass, we won't define this slash. So maybe in here I'm just gonna say login, pass, logout. Let me add a comma. And then, yeah, for now, that's about it. So we're just going to take a look how to build a Django's user authentication from scratch. So we have login and logout. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to enable user to, so we're not going to using any OAuth for now. But I do make some OAuth video about like GitHub OAuth and Google OAuth. If you're interested in that, you can check it out. But for this, we're just going to do our native. So we're going to store information all in our database. So now what we could do is we have urls.py. We have urls.py within our authentication app. Now let's go ahead and create urls.py in our form maker, in our entire project. So in here, you can see there's some doc string that's going to help you to understand what's urls file for. But in here, I'm just going to say something like this. So in here, I'm just going to say from Django.urls, I'm going to say import include, comma, pass, just like this, because we won't going to include some other apps urls.py. So in here, I'm just going to say pass, and then I'm going to add auth as a prefix to everything that is within my authentication URL. And then in here, I'm just going to say include authentication.urls. So what's happening here is whenever you are visiting this, we have a base URL. Base URL, for example, is like google.com. That's the base URL. And then /hello is the prefix as we define. Hello slash, actually. Hello slash is a prefix as we define. So whatever route that you're accessing with that is within the authentications urls.py, always have a prefix in its path, which is auth/, and then we have the actual URL, the actual path that's associated to each different function that we're going to use. So it's going to be world/, and then in this case, it's so for example, if we want to access the login route, what we need to do is base URL / auth/ login/. So this is how it works. If it's a little bit confusing, comment below. I know it's a little bit confusing, but you will see once I get the app start running. So now what I will do is I will go and say Python. So now here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna run a command in a terminal. So here I'm just gonna say Python 3 manage.py make migrations. What's this gonna do? This is a way to make SQL migrations. Whoops. Actually, I'm just gonna comment these two lines out for now. Yeah. Make migrations. There should be no migration to make, but you can see we create a new database file, db.sqlite3. But what would be most interesting is I'm going to run this Python 3 manage.py migrate. What's this gonna happen? Is this gonna create? You can see students have so many SQL information in here. This basically going to create some SQL information, SQL database that we could use. And then for now, you can see all these tables are predefined in our SQL table. So I didn't make any changes to them just yet. So I didn't create my custom table. Alright, so I know it's a little bit confusing. I spent 5 minutes just to get everything set up. Hopefully you can follow me so far. I actually recommend you, if you cannot follow me, I apologize, but what I would recommend you to do is just maybe turn 0 times to 5 times speed, so maybe you can listen slower and understand better. And all of the code will be available anyway. And then I'm gonna put a GitHub link into the description down below. Okay, so now we implement our urls.py. But notice here's the interesting thing. Even if I visit the login route, what should happen? What should happen to login path? So that's where we're going to define views.py. This is where you're going to define all the function that's associated to a path. For example, I could define something like this. Define login view, and then path. And then later I'm going to associate this function with that specific URL. And in here I'm going to add a import command. I'm going to say from Django, let's see, .contrib, .auth, .us. Actually, can't forget about this. Let's see. Let me go and Google a function really quick. Syndicate function Django. I actually kind of forget like where these functions live, and I will include the documentation to description down below. So it's because Django so nicely that it actually have a way to authenticate user directly. Okay. Alright, so gonna use this function and then okay. So what we'll do first is we're gonna import a model. So in here we're gonna say Django from Django.contrib.auth.models import user. And then you can see this is basically what's happening in the user class. And now the reason we import user is because then we can create a new user. So in here, what I can do is, so it turns out that every function that's associated with the Django path need to take one parameter, and then we usually name this as request. Request is basically store stuff like cookies, and then whether this user is logged in or not, and some data specific to this given request, for example. And so here I'm gonna say something like this. So login view, and then here I'm just going to say if request.method equals to post. I can explain what's that in just a little bit. So now you notice that it uses simple conditional checking, and the request.method is basically check what HTTP method it is. So HTTP method, I'm gonna maybe link a documentation to that down in the description as well. So request.method refers to HTTP method, and the HTTP method is commonly used in web applications, specifically when you're submitting a form. And then basically, get is where you will just do a quick Google search. So a quick Google search will show what is get. So I go google.com, and then if I just search Google, for example, you can see there's a lot of information added after the /search route, because you got a SXSRF, we got something like source, EI, and then BTNK, stuff like that. So this is basically get. Anything that you see is available in a URL. For example, you can see this is the most important one. Q for query, so whatever you type here, gonna append to here. So this is get method, where everything you type going to be able to appear in the URLs. But we also have another method, which is called post. Post, as you can see, is here. Post is basically commonly used when submitting some sort of credentials. For example, when you are trying to log in to a certain account, you can see it's not gonna append other information because then it's gonna be so for example, there's arbitrary route like this. If you use the get when you submit credential, it's gonna be something like this. Username is 12345 and password equals to password, the safetiest password in the world. Notice that your credentials actually appeared on the screen. Well, of course, don't want that. That's why we have post request. A post request is going to still send your information to wherever you are submitting, but we don't see the data directly. Okay, that's the magic of post. Of course, in this case, we're doing authentication, which requires user to submitting some sort of credentials. We will go ahead and keep it with a post for now. But we'll still have a get just in case when the user just visited us. Okay, so our goal for today is to find a login view, register, and log out. So that's the 3 things we'll go ahead and do. And then we're also going to test them out. Okay, so in here I define a login view. I'm going to work on each of them one by one. So define register. Excuse me, that's my phone. Request. And then I'm also going to define logout. Just as a request. Alright, so in here, I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to start by typing user. I'm going to say .object .create and then .create user .object. Actually, I'm just going to say something like so. Let me double check the documentation. Okay, so we can do this. User because it's not showing on my intelligent snippet. I'm afraid it's not gonna work. Okay, but here is how can we create a user. You can just type user.objects.create user, and in here is and then we're actually gonna have the same thing. Request.method equals to post passed, otherwise passed. And then this is basically what happened when the user submit a form. So we're just gonna take in username and password. To create user is really simple. We just need to type user.objects.create user, and you need to know the username as well as the password. And don't worry, it will handle password hashing for you. So basically, this one line going to create a user, and the Django is taking care of everything. When we create a user, it also store in the database, and then we can use it later. It's take care about basically everything. Okay, and then in here, I'm just gonna say, and then we'll create a user successfully. And then maybe we'll go ahead dealing with we'll go ahead and dealing with login really quick. So after user create account, and then we store that into our database. Maybe what we want to do now is go ahead and actually log the user in. So I can do that really simple by using another function from our Django. So we can say Django.contrib.auth import authenticate login and log out. These 3 functions are going to help us to authenticate a user, of course, log in a user in, and then log out a user. So in here, after we create a user, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and authenticate. So authenticate, what's going to happen is it's going to basically give you a user object back that you can actually use. So of course, in this case, since we just created a user, of course, all the information is going to be exactly matched. So in here, I can just put our request here, and then we need to put some credentials. So username equals to request.post username. And a request.post bracket, you can just imagine we're accessing a dictionary of values. And it's basically, it's we can get the value by using like key and value pairs. And then password equals to request post password. Key and value pairs, and then we can log Authenticate. And then Authenticate gonna return us a user object. And then we can use login to actually log in this user object with this current request. And then later in here, I'm just gonna say something like this. I'm going to import another thing from Django. So in here, I'm just gonna say from Django dot HTTP import HTTP response. So this is the way to return some basic text on the screen. So in here, I can just say return HTTP response, and I'm just gonna say, hello, you logged in successfully. And then, yes, we're basically done with how what happened when we register a user. You can see just 4 lines. Again, what's happening here is we create a user, we get the user's model back by authenticate the user. Of course, all the credentials are the same. And then we can log in the user, and then just return something back, because we also always need to return something, because return some valid stuff, such like a HTTP response. So Django know what to display after something finished. And now let's go ahead and implement this this register after if it's not post. So basically, if a user just visited our web page by using get, so just by typing the URL or something. So here I could create another folder, another directory under Authentication app, and here I'm gonna call this templates, and then let's see, templates slash authenticate syndication. Template slash authentication. So it's always template slash whatever your app name is. And then templates is basically a folder where you can store all your HTML templates. So in here, I'm just gonna go ahead and create a, if I know I switch HTML, it's basically a way to make up some content of the web page. And in here, I'm just gonna say, register.html, and I'm just gonna keep it simple. It's gonna have a form, and the submit method is post. And then I'm gonna say inputs type is text, name equals username. We must have name, because then it's know what we, so it will be able to actually store this as a key and value pair. That's when we can access in backend later. Placeholder is username. And then let me go create a BR, line break this. And then I'm gonna go create good type is password. So to actually get some password back, password, BR, and then input type equals to submit. To submit a form. Of course, for those of you who is experienced with Django, you will see this have a big problem. Not really big, but it's gonna break your program somehow. And then it's what we call a CSRF token, cross-site request forgery. It's basically so a CSRF is a security way that Django support built into all the Django. So whenever you submit something via post, you need to know that the request is verified. Unless you otherwise specify, don't check this. Otherwise, you need to check whether this is verified. So basically, a really easy example of explain a CSRF attack is basically a bank account, using your bank account. So maybe the bank have a form where you can fill out to withdraw some money to some account, and then some hacker, maybe just going to go ahead, as long as they know where the form is submitting to, it just can create a similar form that you can fill out the information, and then the bank says, okay, it's a post and everything looks good, I'm just going to withdraw some money to this account. So this is a dangerous attack. That's why we have, and then with the CSRF protection, CSRF token, what's going to happen is it's going to check, it's have a list of all the CSRF tokens, and it's going to check whether the CSRF tokens are valid. So that means if the CSRF token is not valid, then the form not going to get checked at all. Otherwise, it's actually going to get submitted. So CSRF token, you could just think it is a security protocol. and you always need to add that all the post form unless otherwise you specified. And to add a CSRF token is really simple. Under your form, just go ahead and add curly braces %sign CSRF token underscore token. Alright, and in here's what I'm gonna do. Notice the render function, we're gonna use the render function. In here I'm gonna say return render request, and then I'm gonna say authentication slash register.html. So this is a way to actually return an HTML template, return a render and HTML templates. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to, before I forgot, we need to go to settings.py really quick. I know there's a lot of things to do with Django. So sorry, I'm kind of like go to like a lot of places. So settings.py, and then in the installed app, you actually need to manually add the app that you created. In this case, I need to actually add authentication into this installed app list. And then I'm just going to add it as the first element. So that's what when we run the Django application, it will know, okay, this app is installed, even if you just created this. Okay, so this is a register. Let's go ahead and check this out, see if it works. So now I'm just going to run Python 3 manage.py run server. So let's go ahead and start this server running. And there's basically a way to start everything. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and fix this a little bit. So here I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to add another argument. I'm going to say views. And then in here I'm just going to say views dot register. So this register is a function that we created, which is gonna support. So it's a valid Django routable function. Okay, so now let's go ahead and you can see starting development server at 127.0.0.1:8000. No page found. That's great because we didn't implement what's happening when you visit this route. And by default, it's just gonna display a 404 page. But I'm gonna go /alt/register, and then so you can see, we see our little HTML form here. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. And here I'm just gonna type a username. Let me just type that as me, and password is also that as me. And then you can see we logged in successfully. So you can see we logged in without any error, and you will say, did I really log in successfully? Well, there's one thing you can check is, do we actually have this user in the database? So to check whether we have this user in the database, I'm just going to say open database. Hopefully it works through the VS Code. Notice I have a table automatically created called auth user. And then let me just display on the side. Now you can see we actually have this user created. User step is me. And then last, you can see it's also have automatic stuff here. We also have a password that's securely hashed, so we don't need to worry about whether if our database leaked or the password is readable easily. Okay, so now we define a register route. And now what about log in? Well, login is even easier since this is how we actually log in. So now I can just copy this and then paste it here. Log in and then paste it here. But there is only one issue. There is one issue. If I just copy this and paste it here, is what if user typed wrong credentials? What if we could not find a user where the username matches with whatever their input is and the password matches whatever their password is? So now what we need to do is this. And then if it doesn't match, it's going to return none. So the user would not be a user object, it's going to be a none. So here I'm going to say if user is not none. So that means basically if we get a valid user object back, which also means, okay, we do have this user object that's we can work with. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do our login step and then return your login successfully. But then otherwise, maybe I'm just going to return. You entered wrong credentials. Okay, and then pass, and then else I'm just gonna say return render a request. You also need to put request as a first parameter when you are using render function. And then I'm going to say authentication slash login.html. And then here, back to our templates, I'm going to create a file called login.html. And then let me go start our regular. I'm actually just going to copy and paste it. This is basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing. Login and register. And then again, the step is basically this. So we're first checking, do we have this valid user? If we do, then log them in. Otherwise, if the user is none, which means we don't have this user, then I'm just going to return in the wrong credential. And then for the get, we're just going to return a login.html. I'm pretty sure it works. I'm not going to double check it. And logout is the easiest route to implement. It's just need to implement logout and put request here. That's all we need. And then we just need to say return a shapey response. You logged out successfully. All right. So now let's go ahead and associate this function, these two functions we defined with the route as well. So let me go uncomment these lines. And here I'm just going to say views dot login view and views dot log out view. All right. So these are the function names that's defined, and let's check them out. So now I'm gonna log out since I'm logged in. Whoops, I forgot to add /aus in front of it. /aus. You can see I logged out successfully. Now let me go ahead and try to register or try to log in using the password. I'm typing the correct password. So I should see you log in successfully. And if I type something like this, random password, you can see you entered wrong credentials. All right, so I think that's all I will cover in this video. So for the next video, what I will do is I will talk about email verification, forget password. So you're going to finish the authentication step. By the way, congratulations, finish this. I know it's a lot of stuff, especially for beginner who's first into Django. I recommend you to play this in slower speed because I maybe explain too fast. Since I mean, maybe the video is already 30 minutes long. It's pretty long. I want to keep it short, but I mean, it doesn't have to. It's not like I'm trying to earn money. But I just want to make sure you guys understand what I'm talking about. Just going to do a quick recap. We define, so we create our Django project, create an app named authentication, define as 3 views, which is 3 functions. So register function, login function, logout function. The obvious does what it said. We also talk about the user object, which is basically a way to manage user in Django. And then we also have a way to log the user in, log the user out. And then authenticate the user. These all has a built-in function to Django, so that's pretty nice. We also talk about to return just a string and an HTML template. So that's a lot of stuff, but I hope you understand so far. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. We're posting the Discord channel and then Discord server. I will link the Discord server into the description down below as well. Well, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and have a nice rest of your day. All right.